Hi there, and welcome to the first of our HM Sofa Sessions Get Comfortable With series. In this series, we try and make employment law a little bit less intimidating, and today we're tackling probably the biggest development of the last year. That's the Employment Rights Act 2025. We've got Sam Butler here to speak to you about it.
Hi, yeah, that's right. And you'd be forgiven for not being able to keep up with last year and the changes in 2025. The Act ping-ponged, as we call it, between the House of Commons and the House of Lords. Lots of consultation, lots of changes, lots of amendments, lots of proposals. But the key piece of information is that the Act is now an Act. The bill has become law. And some of the changes are coming in straight away. I don't think the government anticipated it would take this long to make it law. But some of those changes are going to be coming in from February of this year.
And that's what we're going to talk about today, isn't it? Those points that are coming first.
Exactly, yeah. So we're going to be talking about the first tranche of changes. What we're not going to do is cover the whole Act. It's 337 pages. We haven't got the time or I don't think the energy to cover it all. But what we're going to be doing is highlighting some of the key things that you need to be aware of in that first tranche, with some of those changes coming in as soon as February 18th of this year.
So let's start with some of those big changes and those big themes. What are we expecting to see over the next couple of months?
Yeah, so I think the main theme of change is around industrial relations and unions. And we're talking about a bit of a step change from February 18th of this year. And that's a kind of raft of changes. We talk about this a lot in our accompanying article to this video. But some of the key ones are in respect of the notice that unions will have to give employers for when strikes are going to take place. Also the ballot papers and the prescribed information that needs to be included on there. But also kind of a big one is that strike mandates are going to be able to last from 12 months instead of 6 months.
And obviously that's going to change, I think, the nature of disputes in the workplace and the dynamics to interact there.
I think so. I mean, normally when you talk about unions, most employers think we don't have a recognised union, so it's not a problem for us. One of the big changes that is going to come into effect is that effectively recognition is going to become easier. So I think we can expect to see more interest from unions with employers. We're also going to get extended protections from dismissal for employees who are taking part in strike action. So again, that dynamic, and I think that relationship will change.
And a lot of people will have heard about the Fair Work Agency. That feels like quite a big change and something that's going to change a lot of how these things are approached.
I think it will. And for those who aren't aware, the Fair Work Agency brings together lots of disparate enforcement agencies in employment law. But the Fair Work Agency not only brings them together, it's got a really, really important new function, and that is that it's going to be able to bring claims on behalf of workers and employees who perhaps might not have brought those claims. That might be because they're not aware of their rights or because they're still an employee and they perhaps don't want to rock the boat. So we know that the Fair Work Agency is going to be highlighting key headline areas, kind of big ticket items, things like national minimum wage, holiday pay, sick pay, focusing on agencies where quite often there are quite sloppy practices in these big ticket items. So the Fair Work Agency is really going to be focusing on them, and that is potentially a bit of a step change, particularly for larger employers.
So a lot of changes coming around the kind of trade union space. I mean, apart from that, are there other things that HR teams need to be aware of in that kind of immediate period?
Yeah, so also from April of 2026, we're going to see some enhanced, effectively, punishment for getting collective consultation wrong. So a doubling of what we call a protective award for getting that area wrong. We've also got new standalone whistleblowing areas for sexual harassment, raising concerns about sexual harassment. Now, you'll see in the article, we talk about why that's perhaps not as big a deal as the headline might suggest, but it is something to be aware of. We've also got new day one parental rights, and crucially, for pretty much every employer, changes to statutory sick pay eligibility. And I think that most employers really will need to be preparing for increased costs in respect of statutory sick pay and potentially more short-term absences.
So, I mean, some of those are things that we see HR dealing with every day, short-term absences and things like that. There's a lot of things there that people probably don't deal with very often.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it does demonstrate the breadth of employment law that the Act seeks to deal with. This is probably going to be 2 or 3 years of all these changes coming in, and they are going to touch on such disparate areas of employment relations. But you do have some areas, whistleblowing, collective consultation. You might never deal with that. But if it does arise and we get it wrong, it's quite a high stakes thing to sort of get wrong. So it's really useful, I think, to get a broad understanding of what these changes are and make sure you feel confident that if something does arise, you're not starting from scratch. Obviously, then you will have things like SSP changes, as we talked about, which you kind of do need to be ready to go day to day from April this year.
So, I mean, we've talked about those kind of changes that are going to happen in February, April. I understand there's also quite a lot of changes coming later in the year as well.
Yeah, that's right. And the key date, again, for your diaries is October 2026. And there's going to be more consultation. There's going to be more amendments. We say a lot likely to happen in October 2026 because there are going to be more consultations and things coming through that we're not 100% sure on. But generally speaking, we know that the focus in October 2026, enhanced rights for unions to be able to access workplaces, both digitally and physically, to recruit new members, but also to do their job in terms of representation. Also improving information about unions to the workforce. So a new obligation on employers to disseminate information about unions. That's not a huge deal, but it's just more admin that HR will need to be aware of as part of their annual information sharing, but also onboarding. But we've also got, again, really specific points about fire and rehire changes, more enhanced sexual harassment protections in the workplace, really specific stuff around things like tipping legislation. And also a biggie is the tribunal time limit. So the time period from which you can make a claim is going to be extended from 3 to 6 months from October of 2026.
And I appreciate there's a lot of things there, so we're probably not going to manage to get through all of those today, but no doubt we'll look at those again in future.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I could talk about all this all day, but we're not going to do that in this video. We have got an accompanying article, of course, which does touch on these in a bit more detail. We're going to be doing plenty more sessions like this, headlines, key things that people need to know, and obviously we've got our regular HR matters.
Excellent. So, I mean, as a kind of final question or a final point, I mean, what do people need to take away that they need to be doing now? What, in the next month or two, we've got these changes coming in February, what do HR teams, business owners need to be thinking about immediately?
So, first off, read our accompanying article, I would say that. But I think it's about being kind of on the basics really, really well. So, getting up to speed with some of these headlines, but it's going to be about policy adapting. So, checking your policies are ready. So, policies in respect of whistleblowing, pay, holiday pay, parental pay, but also aligning processes between your statutory sick policy and HR and payroll. So everyone knows what they need to be doing from April. It might also be a good time to refresh some of your manager training, those who are dealing day to day with some of these issues. I mean, some of these practices have been very, very long standing, the way we do things. So it will feel like a bit of a shock. So it's going to be important for managers to feel confident that they know what they need to do and when. And finally, if you are interested in this area, even if you don't have a recognised union, you might want to think about your strategy for how you engage with employees and unions going forward.
That's great. I think it's a really good place to leave it, and look forward to reading the article and looking at the rest of things in the future.
Right. Thanks, Alan. Thanks.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks for joining me, Callum McLean, my colleague Sam Butler from Horsfield Menzies, for our first episode of our HM Sofa Sessions Get Comfortable With series. Today, we hope we've made you a little bit more comfortable with the Employment Rights Act.
Make sure you hit like and follow to subscribe to our content, make sure you don't miss any of our sofa sessions, and make sure you subscribe to our monthly update HR Matters.